But as we mentioned in our headlines, tourism in South Africa is on the rise. The sunny weather, rich heritage sites and the abundance of fun outdoor activities are proving to be a hit with locals and foreigners alike. The number of visitors to the country has gone up by 2.9%. Visitors from outside the SADC region have increased by 8.4%. Now, in the run-up to the December holidays, we want to look at how hotel bookings compare with bed and breakfast and self-catering accommodation. Tourism lecturer at TUT, Unathi Henama, is here to discuss this. Thanks for your time this afternoon. Right, so we've seen an increase in the number of foreign visitors, but some believe that visa-free access to South Africa for visitors from the continent will boost those figures even more. Do you agree?
I agree. I mean, if you look at the latest results, Angola achieved a 52% increase, and that's because last year there was a signing of an agreement where there's visa-free travel between the two countries. So visa-free travel is the way to go. The whole world is moving towards visa-free travel because it has become a good way in which you boost the economy. People always ask about security. When somebody enters the plane, when somebody comes to South Africa and already they bought the flight, they can already be picked up whether they are an undesired or desired person that comes to our country. So the issue of security can always be managed.
Okay. So in terms of managing visa-free access and which countries are allowed to for their citizens to visit South Africa without visas and which are not, does that come down to international relations, or how are those regulations determined?
It usually comes down to relationships between countries. But if South Africa is serious about boosting tourism and saying it is the new gold, then we must look at countries that are coming here where do we have visa applications for them. Then we say, no, let's change that, because we have realized this is a good way to boost travel to our country. And when these people come to our country, they eat our local food. They do a lot of shopping, you know, and they set up businesses, and they also bring their children to come here for health care, education, and all of those. So it has a much, much greater multiplier effect on the economy.
So we know that local travel spikes over December as many South Africans travel either to visit family or to go for a holiday on the coast. Do we also see an increase in visitor numbers from outside our borders?
Yes, there was actually a 3% growth in visitors from outside of the borders of South Africa, because they use our country as an important base for business. They can come for 2 days and go out. So they actually have more visitations than international visitors that come to our country. So their economic impact is actually much greater. But again, how do we treat them? How is the treatment that we give them at all these land-based border posts? So we need to have a different attitude about how we treat a lot of these traders that come to South Africa and spend a plethora of amount of money here.
So, of course, a lot of people aren't necessarily just flying in, like you're saying, that they're travelling in through the borders. What are we seeing in terms of accommodation? Are there specific trends in terms of where people are choosing to stay? There's so many options: hotels, bed and breakfast, self-catering apartments. What are we seeing in terms of movement?
The great growth of Airbnb. If you look at the tourism accommodation stats, it's been actually showing a decline, you know, and the decline has always been subscribed to the decline in the domestic tourism. But no. What Stats is not doing, it is not counting the great impact that Airbnb is doing in the market. I mean, in the Western Cape, there's actually big like a slap about how now they've opened up what I describe as disruptive accommodation entrepreneurship, where people can take their accommodation and provide places to stay. What that has done is that it has reduced the cost of traveling and made travel much more democratic. And that is exactly what we want. We want more people to travel, and we want to use tourism as an enabler of economic growth in many destinations.
And of course, what we see as well with online and social sort of platforms like Airbnb is that not only does it make travel more affordable, but it also provides visitors with a very immediate platform to respond to how they're being treated. So if they get bad service or the accommodation is not up to standard, then that becomes very immediately aware, and they can share that information with other travellers. Whereas a lot of sort of hotel or more sort of traditional accommodation, that kind of feedback is not as readily available.
I agree, and I believe that the tourism sector in South Africa has actually been very good. It is adapted. On the 17th of November, we're having the National Lizela Awards, and I was one of the judges under Accommodation. And online reviews are increasingly becoming important, because we say that is the daily interface between guests and the establishment. So it is important that establishments understand that in order for them to adapt, they must ensure that each and every guest who comes, they say, please rate me on TripAdvisor, please rate me on any other platform, so that it can be a feedback system that we even pick up when we are judging.
And we know that the investor conference over this weekend is talking about the economy, where both local and foreign investment can help boost the economy. And everyone is feeling the pinch this year. Do you think that the increase in petrol prices is going to affect local travel over this December?
Oh yes. I mean, if you look at the past 2 years, the domestic tourism stats have been actually indicating a perennial decline. And obviously this year, where there's possibly a 15% increase in the standard of living for South Africans, there will be a big decline in domestic tourism. But again, times of crisis are times of opportunity. It means that destinations must package themselves differently. Even destinations around Gauteng must be coming with lower price packages and appeal to people right now. The bad times don't last forever. So even those destinations that want to attract Gautengers must start now knocking on the door and say, we are available.
So staycation becomes more of a thing and then opens up opportunities for people in areas where people might have been leaving an area to go elsewhere. Now they're staying.
Yes, that's the trend. But what is important is that our tourism planners in all cities, when I visit a city, when I go to Durban, I must get 101 things to do in Durban immediately when I get there. So that information flow must be there, because we only consume things when somebody takes the effort to convince us to consume those things.
So let's take a look back again at travellers from abroad. What are we telling foreigners about South Africa? What is the messaging at the moment in terms of South Africa as a destination to visit? In the past, we've seen a lot of negative reporting in other countries about our crime stats, about the safety for tourism, for travellers. Has that messaging changed recently?
Yes, that messaging changed. SA Tourism is doing an excellent job in selling our destination. And I believe as tourism becomes the new normal, people understand that in any destination, there'll be the good parts and the bad parts of that destination. So since September 11th and the normalization of tourism in Europe, it has actually assisted us, because we are able to say, no, yes, we do have a crime problem, but not all areas are crime-riddled.
And in terms of infrastructure and growth and development, are we getting to a better place where we can offer tourists easier access? And a lot of people talk about, Europe is such an easy destination to visit because there's constant ease of access between different places. Public transport is so easily accessible and affordable. Are we growing in those areas as well?
I believe we're not growing at that pace. South Africa, it's interesting. South Africa, on this continuum, we've got first world infrastructure and the third world reality. But you always find that tourists usually go to the tourism zones, which usually have got a first world infrastructure. But obviously, we do not want them to stay there. We want them to geographically spread within the country and spread the tourism dollar that they're bringing. So it places a responsibility on municipalities to ensure that they improve their roads, they improve their signage, and do all these things to attract tourism. The tourism sector is not an easy sector to operate in. It requires a great investment, but most importantly, it forces a country or a destination to treat its citizens better, because we always say, if the towns and cities are great enough for us as residents to stay there, the tourists will naturally come.
And in terms of diversity and South Africans being very welcoming, are we welcoming of foreign tourists, especially tourists from the continent?
I believe yes. We are very, very welcoming. It's just that whenever there is xenophobic violence, it then muddies the water, But I believe we are very, very welcoming. We are naturally a warm people, and people love our culture, and people love our heritage, and most importantly, South Africa's story is always so motivational about how we looked at our differences and say, let's move forward as a country. That is always a selling story when people come to this country.
And of course, diversity offers something for everyone to enjoy when they do come and visit.
Yes.
Thank you very much for your time. That was TUT lecturer Unathi Henama telling us about the tourism stats in South Africa at the moment and the improving rate of visits from foreigners.